Hi there, Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we want to start off immediately by continuing to wish you a blessed Advent, but not for much longer, just a few more days. And that blessed commemoration of the birth of Jesus is upon us in the beautiful season of Christmas. I'm Jerry Usher, along with Debbie Georgiani. Debbie, you're looking Christmassy today already, a little bit.
I feel Christmassy. It's getting closer. Yeah, it's getting exciting. Have all my gifts wrapped, ready to go. So it's always a good feeling when you you make your lists and you get everything done, and it has that wonderful feeling. Can you relate to that, or do you have lists that you make?
Not really. No, I don't do a lot of holiday shopping. I just, I buy a few gifts for certain people and, kind of leave it. This year I just sent out a few gift cards. That was all. So.
Right. I got less Christmas cards this year. Did you? Did you notice that? There was it's kind of slowed up a bit. Right.
Well, I think with e-cards and, emails, and I think we all just feel a lot closer to each other on a regular basis. So, there was a time when Christmas was that special time, reach out to someone you hadn't talked to maybe since last Christmas.
True.
So a lot of that has changed. But, hey, today we're going to be talking about news and where we get our news and why.
Staying informed. We titled it, How Do You Stay Informed? There's many ways that you can get your news to stay up to date on current affairs. We know we like to do that. And so we want to ask you, what is your method? How do you get the news? Which sources do you trust? Which do you rely on? We have ours, but we want to hear from you because we learn from you. 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to call to get on the show. If you were listening yesterday, we were talking about Christmas carols, and Jerry, the phones were ablaze. Oh my goodness. There were so many calls coming in, and it was just an extraordinary show. But that's what our listeners do. They want to participate because they know they drive the show. So if you have something to say about this, how you stay informed, call in at 1-800-585-9396.
Yeah, and speaking of traditional ways that things were done, or stereotypes, if you will, there was that age, Debbie, when people would get home from work at 5:30, 6 o'clock, flip on the evening news, and it was just part of an evening routine. And now there are just so many news sources that are out there that you can you can be informed, like actually saturated with news throughout the entire day. So a lot of this has changed, our consumption of news. So what we're asking you is, do you still like to grab that easy chair and maybe a cup of tea and sit down and watch the local or national evening news? Or are you like me? I simply cannot watch it anymore. The biases, the slants, the offensiveness to our religious sensibilities on many occasions. I simply choose not to. Are you like me? Have you kind of turned sour on some of the, the mainstream news, or do you still like that? I would certainly respect that. Maybe you've got a certain blog that you go back to all the time. You say, this is dependable. I know this person. I know them to be, dependable. There's not going to be any fake news, not any sensationalism here. So, again, what are the sources that you choose to dip into for your news? And maybe share a little bit of your rationale why.
One thing I want to introduce, Jerry, that I noticed that's been happening lately, and it's actually quite disturbing, is I noticed that a lot of folks are, and they're trusted sources, trusted friends, and I'm sure they're well-intentioned, but they're recirculating Facebook news that's going through on a daily basis through the Facebook channels. And it's very unfortunate because if you go and you dive into it a little deeper, you'll see that it's an article maybe from several years back, and it's just being recirculated as brand new, up-to-date news. And that can cause issues. I really think that can incite, some fears and even some violence and stuff like that, because you're keeping alive things that have happened many years past. And so I noticed that's been happening a lot lately. And so for me, when I'm on Facebook, if I see a news story, I immediately go to the source and find out when it was originally published and if it was true or not, because I think that can be kind of dangerous, because you have a friend on Facebook, so you do trust them. So you think, okay, if they're going to post this, they must have done their research, but that's not necessarily true.
It is often not the case. And so here is the phone number for you to drive another Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, 1-800-585-9396. How do you choose to get your news? Is it a blog? Is it maybe a news feed from a service? Again, it could be radio or television. It could be one of EWTN's fantastic news outlets the world over with Raymond Arroyo, News Nightly. It could be a CNA, National Catholic Register. Do you still read magazines? Do you still receive magazines in the mail or newspapers? 1-800-585-9396. And do you do what Debbie just talked about? Are you a little bit, maybe, a little bit weary when you receive some sort of piece of news? Do you instinctually want to say, let me look into this a little bit? Or, do you find that you just kind of, you're trusting, you're confident, and maybe you just retweet it or repost it or something, and, be curious to know what people feel about this.
You know where else? You mentioned all of the EWTN sources for news, and definitely you trusted sources, absolutely. Teresa Tomeo, Catholic Connection, great. I love getting my news from her. She's fabulous. I just love the way she uncovers certain things that are happening, and she's right on top of it. I think Teresa does a fabulous job. Morning Glory, same thing. It's great because you know that they've done their research and they want the best for us, and they really present it in a wholesome way, and that's important. And cable news outlets, I know, are quite popular too, Jerry. And I will tell you that it's changed a lot because, like you said, in the old days, we used to flip on the nightly news, like you said, maybe even preparing dinner and watching it, and we just assumed that everything was real and true. But it's not. And so we really have to be careful. And I think this is a good discussion. So jump in on this. 1-800-585-9396. That's the number to get on the show. Don't wait. Don't hesitate, because this hour goes by very, very quickly.
Indeed it does. And we'd love to have you on that last open phone line right there as we go to a short break. We'll get to Ann and the others on the line. 1-800-585-9396. How do you like to get your news, and how do you like to get real, authentic news that you can trust and believe in? Give us a call, 800-585-9396.
Hello, this is Father John Paul Mary.
This is Jerry Usher, co-host of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
This is Bishop John Folda of the Diocese of Fargo. Have a blessed Advent from all of us at EWTN Radio.
The Reason for Our Hope with Father Larry Richards.
Once someone's died, you remember explicitly what that person said to you. Now, so we go back and we start off with King David. Now, King David is a good man to begin with, because King David, the word David means beloved of God. God says of David, he is a man after my own heart. But you all know David, right? He was a murderer. And yet God said he was a man after his own heart, because David kept getting up and trying, repenting. We have the beautiful Psalms. God have mercy on me, coming from David, So he knew what it was to be a man. And so here's King David, and he takes his son Solomon. The last words of wisdom he gives him. 1 Kings chapter 2, verse 2. He says, I am going the way of all mankind. So, take courage and be a man.
The EWTN Religious Catalog is now totally digital. Go to EWTNRC.com, click View Digital Catalog. When you find something you like, click on it. Religious Catalog. Gifts to keep Christ in Christmas.
'Tis the season for Christmas programming. Join EWTN Radio Christmas Eve and Christmas Day for the 48 Hours of Christmas with Raymond Arroyo and the World Over Christmas Special.
Can you fulfill a huge Christmas wish of mine?
Now, what would that be?
Could we sing I Wish You a Merry Christmas?
We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas. We wish you a Merry Christmas.
The 48 Hours of Christmas, Christmas Eve and Christmas Day on EWTN Radio.
Stay informed. That's what we're talking about today on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. And we hope you jump in on this discussion because we need to hear from you. We always learn from you. What you have to say is very, very important. 1-800-585-9396. You'll talk to Matt Gabinski. He's wonderful to talk to. And then you can listen live on you can listen to the show, so you can jump in. Sometimes I was always nervous about calling into a radio show, Jerry, because I thought, well, they're going to put me on hold. I'm not going to know what they're talking about. I may go on and I may repeat myself and I'm going to look like, that's not true. You can listen. You'll be listening to the show while you're on hold. So you'll just jump right in. It's kind of seamless. It's really quite enjoyable. 1-800-585-9396. As promised, Jerry said we're going to Ann, driving through North Carolina, listening on Sirius XM 130. Hi, Ann. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hello.
Hello, Ann. Hi, Ann.
Can you hear me?
Very well.
Okay.
Go ahead. How do you like to stay informed, Ann?
I like to use foreign news networks. I think they give us a better idea of what the world thinks of where we are and who we are. And I have them come in on my internet because I've cut off my TV completely. And I daily get news from the Israeli News Network. And from Franz von Katz and several others. I'm a little bit disappointed with what's going on in Canada, so I've cut that one back as well. But the Israeli News Network is a staple for me, and I traveled there with Jeff Cavins in January, and I have a great deal of empathy for what they go through because it certainly isn't the way it's reported here.
Interesting. Yeah, I was not aware of that fact, but I do believe, I agree with you, Ann. I think it is very, very healthy, actually, for us to tap into news networks that are being broadcast out of other countries and see what they're saying about what's going on in the United States and vice versa. So I think that's really a healthy, positive approach that you have taken there. Is that exclusive to you, Ann, or do you still watch some the major network news broadcasts in our country?
I listen to EWTN when I'm in the car, and that's where I am now. And I actually listen to programs. I do most of it now on my computer. I do not listen to network news at all. It just is demoralizing, and it makes you feel bad. So that's where I'm going.
Well, Ann, you listen to Take Two, so that makes us happy. But
well, like I said, I have EWTN the whole time. I have it on in my car the whole time I'm driving.
Beautiful, beautiful. I have a question for you, Ann. Since you tap in to the international news, do you find that the folks around the world, what is the general view of what they think of the United States? I mean, what do they think of us? I'm just curious because Jerry and I traveled to the Holy Land. I've been to Italy. I've been to other countries, and it's interesting when you talk to the local folks there. How kind of they have this. I don't know, maybe kind of a tough view of what they think we live under. Like they think we're very spoiled and very, entitled, which we are. But what is your take on that?
I find that it depends again on the age group, and I just in a Bible study last weekend we were discussing the millennials and the difference in. And that comes from my generation as well, the way they were brought up and the way they think about things and the fact that relativism has taken over and they really don't want to hear it. But that's a certain age group. Older people and people in general, like when we were in Israel, I didn't find that at all. They're very happy that we're where we are and we're saying what we are. The same thing with Canada. I have a good friend who's a former nun who now goes to my church, and we talk all the time about what's going on in Canada and, the stance that Trudeau takes. And it's interesting, but it's sad as well. I don't know what the answer is going to be. We just have to look for our little pieces in the world, places where we have people who think the same way and give us peace.
Well, amen to that.
But I haven't found a radio station or a news network here that can do that for me. Not the network channels, anyway.
Like you said, Ann, just keep it on EWTN, and that's a very, very good place to start. And we thank you for your call. Drive safely through North Carolina. And please continue to listen to Take Two, and have a blessed Advent and Merry Christmas, Ann. We thank you for calling and joining us. And folks, please understand, we hope and pray that you tap into all of EWTN's news, agency, outreaches and outlets and so forth. But this isn't just simply about that. I mean, we hope that you do that, but we want to know beyond that. I mean, are you a news hound? Do you really just like to kind of know what's going on, stay informed? And if so, how do you do that? Maybe like me, you work or used to work in the media field, maybe even in the dissemination of news. I'd love to hear your thoughts on your freedom to present things as they really are. And I say that, Debbie, because, for example, you've got every year in sometimes some of the most frigid, awful, horrible conditions in January in Washington, D.C., upwards of 500,000 people that gather and march for life. Have you ever seen that on a network newscast? I think maybe I've seen a little story that said thousands of anti-choice, this kind of thing.
Yeah. Well, and to your point, Jerry, I'll tell you, going through airports when we're traveling, it bothers me very much because the cable news that they choose for the different airports, it's very slanted. I mean, and it's so much of it, you just look at it, you shake your head and you think, wow, this is just not accurate. This isn't right. This isn't true. And they're not even covering the stuff that's really happening in the world. And that's frustrating. It really is, because that is what we're absorbing, because you have a lot of time to take that in when you're waiting for your flight and stuff. And so I think that is, there's a lot of agenda driven when it comes to that. But I'd love to hear what our listeners have to say, our Take Two family. What do you have to say about this? I mean, this can be a touchy subject. I'll tell you what, it's going to come up possibly on your Christmas conversations, because, right now there's so much happening around the world that there's a lot to talk about. 1-800-585-9396. Please don't sit this out. Ann was driving through North Carolina and she stopped to make a call to share with us how she gets her news. And see, that's what drives this show. So you need to do the same thing. Follow Ann's lead. 1-800-585-9396.
I remember growing up, my wise, beautiful, beloved mother had a saying that a lot of people have probably heard and said before, and that is, what did she say? She says, believe only half of what you see and none of what you hear. And I used to think, oh gosh, how silly, because, you just think that, if an agency, a network, a station, whatever is charged with presenting the news, you just want to assume that they're presenting things as they really are, and, just the facts, ma'am, as they say.
Yeah, give me the facts.
But then the thing is, Debbie, you look from one source to another, and the details are so much different. The emphases are so much different. And so I think we are in an age right now where a lot of those who have the responsibility of presenting what's going on in our culture and the world are, rather than reporting the news, in many cases they're making the news. And I really believe this is even true with some of the different social protests that go on. We hear about people being bussed in and given 3 meals a day, and then they're on camera, and all of this looks like it's about to blow up, and it's really just kind of made for TV. So I don't know. I want to hear from you listeners. What do you think? Where should we get our news, and where do you get your news, and why?
Well, that's what we're asking today. And like we said at the beginning of the show, we learn from you. So just like we learned from Ann about international news, you get a whole new perspective on that. And that's what Ann is drawing from. And that's very important. And then we also talked about how we can really trust EWTN and the outreaches that they provide in the news and publishing, because it's we know it's a trusted source. You're going to get the facts, and that's very, very important. And I think we don't do enough research. We just kind of take things at face value, Jerry, and we think, okay, well, if that was put out there, well, of course, if Jerry Usher posted it, it's got to be true, right? I mean, that's what you're thinking. And Jerry, I know you always do, but I'm saying that's what you think when you know someone or you're familiar with something. You just assume that somebody else did the research, but that's not the case in this day and age. And I think it's time we kind of wake up and realize we have to do our own investigation on things. 1-800-585-9396. Okay, the Take Two family's starting to wake up. You guys are lighting up the phones. That's the way to do it.
Yeah, let's get right back to them. Lewis is in Sulphur Springs, Texas. He's got us on Sirius XM 130. Lewis, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, Jerry and Debbie. How are you? God bless you and Merry Christmas.
And same to you, Lewis. Thank you.
Well, I just wanted to chime in on what you've been talking about. You know, I'm 47. Over the last 40 years or so, I've come to the realization that, when I was growing up, you could turn the news on, and, of course, before cable and everything, we had 3 major networks. And so you could turn the news on, and you felt reasonably assured that you were getting the full story. And the older I get, and the more I've learned how to do my own self-investigation, which I'm glad you just mentioned that. Without that extra bit of investigation you do on your own, you never can be too sure that you're getting the full story with anything. I have a mother who's elderly now, and she's in a nursing home, and so just by nature of the strict schedule she keeps herself on, she likes to watch certain programs, and those programs come on one of the major networks. And so I see the news reporting at the national level as well as on the local level that goes on. And it's just, I agree, it is very disheartening to be able to, to have to see that and know that's not the full story, and they're not covering everything that is actually going on in the world. And so it's really caused me to really funnel in, my sources of information. There are predominantly 3 sources that I get it from. First is EWTN, and then I also follow a TV station that my cable provider offers out of Israel. And so it's pretty disheartening because I worry for my kids. The older they get, the more the world will start to set in for them, and I worry that where they do get their news and information is going to be very poisonous to them.
Well, Lewis, thank you. Great take, by the way, and thanks for listening and joining us on the program. I find that, along the lines of doing that research, what I will do is if I see a tweet or a Facebook post or hear something on the radio or TV, what I will do is immediately go online and I will just type in certain keywords. And it's amazing. I was talking a minute ago about the variety of different angles and takes and perspectives that you will find on a particular story. But then I kind of look at what the sources are. You'll see EWTN sources, you see NCR, you'll see different blogs and news sources and all of this. And I really like to get a sampling from all of them just to kind of piece together, and make sense of what actually happened in that particular news story. So I find that I do a lot of digging as well. I mean, not all of us have a lot of time to do that, but I think, Debbie, back to your point, and Lewis seemed to agree with you, that it's not a bad approach to take at all.
Yeah, absolutely. And Lewis, I agree with you. I feel sorry for our children and our grandchildren because I see them. You can see them sometimes. I'm a people watcher, and I unfortunately or fortunately, the way you look at it, I have a lot of time in airports, and I'll watch people, and I'll look at the young people, and they'll look up at the TV screen, and they'll pick up a news blurb, and they'll kind of shake their head, and they'll kind of walk away, and you can tell that they kind of absorbed it. and they just took it at face value. And I'm like, wow. I mean, and now I may be reading into it, but like I said, I have a lot of time and I'm a people watcher. And it does disturb me though, because I'm wondering, do they even have a second thought about that? And do they do that follow-up step that you're talking about, Jerry, and going to get all the pieces? And so, Louis, I'm really with you that I pray that the next generations to come up, that they do their homework and they really get the full story. So I'm right with you on that. Any suggestions we could make? I mean, we've got a world microphone right now. Maybe there's some millennials listening. What would you suggest to them?
Well, I'm a college professor, and one of the things that I find is I usually have a pretty good mixed age range in my classes, but among the younger students, what I usually find is they are either A, clueless altogether, they know nothing about what's going on. North Korea could be, launching a nuclear missile towards it, they'll know nothing about it. Or they only have one-sided, skewed point of view.
All right, Louis, thank you so much. You can hear that music. Got a quick pause here. We're coming right back with more Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Where do you get your news and why? We're going to continue with your calls next.
Renew your faith, renew your spirit, and receive the most precious gift of time with our Lord. Stand Tall, an unforgettable retreat, is coming to the St. Bernard Abbey in Cullman, Alabama, February 9th through 11th. Join Take Two's own Jerry Usher and Debbie Georgianni for a spirit-filled weekend, including a visit to the Shrine of the Most Blessed Sacrament, Mass with the Benedictine monks, an evening campfire celebration, and talks by Jerry and Debbie. Space is limited, so register today at jerryanddebbie.com.
The Spirit of Advent with Father Dominic Legg.
In this season of Advent, as we prepare for the coming of Christ at Christmas, we're often invited to lots of Christmas parties. Now, one of the things you'll notice if you go to Christmas parties is how hard the hosts work to prepare for the coming of the guests. In fact, this Christmas, Jesus wants to be a guest in your life, in your heart. Listen to what he says in the book of Revelation. Behold, I stand at the door and knock. If anyone hears my voice and opens the door, I will come into him and eat with him, and he with me. What do you need to do to get ready for the coming of Christ at Christmas? Do you need to clean up the living room? Do you need to take out the trash? What is in your heart that is preventing Christ from coming? Prepare for the coming of Christ this Advent and have a wonderful Christmas.
EWTN. Live truth. Live Catholic.
Open Line Tuesday with Father Wade Menezes.
I enjoy hosting Open Line Tuesday because it gives me an opportunity to connect with our EWTN listeners. We discuss faith, family, fellowship, general catechetics, and pastoral advice. I want to hear from them, what's on their minds, what's on their hearts, and to the best of my ability, be able to guide them as a priest of Jesus Christ.
Open Line Tuesday with Father Wade Menezes debuts January 2nd, 3 p.m. Eastern on EWTN Radio.
More Take Two with Jerry and Debbie on EWTN Radio. Thank you for your calls and your takes. As we wind down toward Christmas, we continue to hope that this Advent season is filled with many, many blessings for you. And please know, please know, we mean this from the bottom of our hearts, what a blessing you are to me and Debbie and the show team, Rich and Jeff and Matt and Michael and Tom and everybody at EWTN. We consider you part of our family and especially the Take Two family. So thanks for making this a great year of broadcasting. And today we're talking about, getting our news. How do we know what's trustworthy in the news? There's so many different ways that we can do that. And quite frankly, I find that it's so easy to get news that I'll have people say, hey, I was watching the TV news and they reported such and such. I say, yeah, I already know. Because you just log on to any website and you got these little news blurbs and, little snippets. And so it's almost impossible not to stay on top of what's going on. But anyway, let's get back to the calls. Go ahead.
Yeah, I just want to thank again Louis. His call was very, very eye-opening because he's a college professor and he was talking about how, our youth can be clueless at times. And I call it sometimes walking around unconscious. And you know what? It's troubling, Jerry. We need to pray, and that's all the more reason why we need EWTN and Catholic Radio. We need it to go strong because we have to combat what's happening out there, and we have to kind of wake up our youth. So thank you again, Louis, for your call. Okay, then here's the number if you want to jump on, because Louis freed up that line, 1-800-585-9396. Plenty of time for you to get on the show, just like Rita did in Ontario, Canada. Hi, Rita. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, Rita. Welcome to the program.
Hi. I have two things. First of all, I'd like to thank you I called about a month or so ago for my husband who had a really bad itching problem. I don't know if you remember. Mm-hmm. But anyways, he's much better. He's not completely cured, and I hope the family still prays for him. But he's doing much better, and I wanted to thank everybody for that.
Praise God. Praise God. Thank you. And
for the news, well, we listen mostly to Catholic radio, and Teresa Tomio, I guess she's my husband's favorite for the news.
Good.
And but then we listen to our national news pretty well every night, and we notice that it's always just one-sided thing. If there's anything good that we know is going to happen, like the March for Life or anything about the Pope or whatever, we never hear anything about it. It's always the bad stuff. The one time they showed 2-3 people protesting the March for Life. Well, they made it look like they were the majority. There's a few people there, and they didn't say nothing about the good part of the people that were there for the March for Life. And about your President Trump, well, he's always in the news, but he's always in a bad light. At least on our channels, they're always they can never say anything good about him. It seems like it's always the bad. But our Prime Minister, well, he's the best of all. So they say anyways. And for us, he's not. He's really not very good. It seems like everything that's against our religion, well, he's for it, and he pushes it, and it's, so anyways, that's...
Yeah, Rita, the point you're making is a very good one, and sorry, Deb, I didn't mean to jump in if you had something, but the media, a lot of them, again, and this isn't let's beat up the media day. I mean, this is just a very objective and I think dispassionate conversation about, what our observations are, and let's face it, they're in business to make money, and they only make money to the extent that they have advertisers, and they only have advertisers to the extent that they have viewers. So this really all is, to a large extent, agenda-driven. It's not simply fact-driven or news-driven, although that's ostensibly what they're presenting to us. But Rita, I think one of the things that I'm taking away from your call that comes to my mind is it really is agenda-driven, and quite frankly, a news channel, a news source can make any story look exactly the way they want to. And if we don't believe that, just look at what's the latest box office hit. I think it's out now, the latest Star Wars movie. The things they can do in movies and with graphics and animations and computers. If all of that is possible, and then we have quote-unquote reality TV, well, what's to keep us from thinking, at least thinking of the possibility, Debbie, that, those who present us with the news are also crafting it in a certain way, wanting us to think a certain way.
Yeah, all smoke and mirrors. Yeah. Absolutely. And Rita, you made some really wonderful points. First of all, I just want to echo what Jerry said. Thank you so much for giving us an update, because we have been praying for your husband, and we will continue to pray for your husband. And now we get to thank God and praise God for giving some relief to your husband. So please let your husband know that we're praying for a full healing recovery so that he has no more itching whatsoever. We're praying for that. Okay. We go for the big gusto with God, because he's an abundant God. Okay. So Rita, we just wanted to let you know that. And also I just wanted to say that it's when I turn on the news, it's really bothersome to me when I do see these reports where there is a statement by anybody in leadership in this country, in the United States, and they'll make an innocent statement, and it's twisted. It's completely twisted and changed, and it's to me, we have so many more things to worry about and to be thinking about. And when we start doing that, when we start jumbling up what other people are saying, genuinely from their heart, and we start twisting it to have a political spin to it or something of that nature, it's really problematic on many levels. And so I agree with you. It's disheartening because it's, you never know what you're going to hear. And and that's why it always seems so negative. So thank you so very much for sharing your wisdom on this. And I made some notes on what you had to say. So great points.
Anything else, Rita, before we let you go?
No, I just want to thank you both for your program and have a blessed Merry Christmas.
Oh, you too. You too. Thank you for the call from Canada. Always love to hear from our Canadian listeners, and we get calls from other parts of the world as well. So we'll continue to pray for your husband, Rita, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you very much.
All right, 800-585-9396, talking about our consumption of the news. Is it objective? Is it sometimes biased a little bit? Is it agenda driven? Is it commercially driven? For the cause of whatever's going to get advertisers and money for the network and the shareholders. What sources do you like to turn to that you think, I really believe that this is the straight scoop for me? 1-800-585-9396. Okay, Alicia and Stacy, you're right after Melissa. We just take you all in the order that you called. So Melissa's in Augusta, Georgia, listening on St. Paul Radio. Melissa, welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Hi, how are you?
Great, Melissa. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
Good.
So I'm a news junkie, and what I do is I listen to really disparate outlets, everything from, EWTN to NPR to Rush Limbaugh. And I'm with the rest of your callers. The major networks, I don't watch them anymore. And the cable, I really dislike a lot of those. But what's frightening to me, sorry, I'm taking my garbage on my driveway.
Okay.
Is
good multitasking.
You know how you said it's based on ads? With, I think, MSNBC, they've had terrible ratings for years, but they're kept on the air. And it's simply an agenda. They don't even care that they're losing money. It's amazing. And I don't know how we fight that.
I don't know if we... I guess, Melissa, the way we fight it is to do what you said you do and what I've already stated on the show that I do, and that is I simply don't watch them. But I don't know. Beyond that, I mean, I don't know. What do you think? Is there anything that we could do? There's such wealthy corporations that are putting some of these networks on the air. What do you think?
I think maybe it's to let the corporations know, I don't really want to get into that, but part of me is just like, maybe we do need to start rallying and saying to advertisers, we can't buy your products because you support organizations who you don't present the news. You present an agenda. And it's really harmful to the U.S. Very, very harmful. And I'm a registered independent. I just want it straight. But we don't get it straight.
What do you think,
and
Deb?
It's frightening.
Well, it's interesting you're saying this, Melissa, because I've always said to my husband, why can't there be, technology has advanced so much. Why can't there be a screen or some kind of buzzer or something on our TV sets when something that is given that is false, there's like an immediate fact checker? I've said this to my husband. Wouldn't that be fascinating? Wouldn't it be great to have a news channel that you could tune in and that if somebody's speaking and it's not the truth it kind of stretches out, all of a sudden this meter goes on and it says, nope, this one's a borderline lie. Wouldn't that be fascinating? I mean, I'm thinking about it. You got to think outside the box. We have to start creating some new ways of us taking in the news. Otherwise, we are going to be fed this propaganda for the rest of our lives. And it's very unfortunate because it's changing the way people feel about religion. It's changing the way they feel about politics. It's changing the way they feel about life in general. And it's very depressing. So I'm right with you, Melissa. What do you think? I mean, hey, who knows? Maybe somebody listening.
The pro-life march is so infuriating, the way they won't pan the crowd, yet they do all they can to make the pro-choice, look like there's millions of them there. It's like you sit there and you're like, how do they get away with this?
Yeah, that actually, you may have heard me mention that very example, Melissa,
Yeah.
earlier in the program. That could be Exhibit A for me, in my mind, as to the agenda or the bias in some of the media. Again, this isn't painting, with completely broad brush, but when you have a gathering like that, if you had a gathering of 100 people who protested a police shooting or any other social justice issue, which is as horrible as it might be. I'm not saying I'm not approving of that, but I'm saying if you had a dozen or 50 or 100 people marching for certain things, it would be all over the news. Here you have 500,000 or more, the largest gatherings maybe this country has ever seen, apart from perhaps when Pope was here and stuff like that, and barely a mention, let alone. Debbie, if this was something the media wanted to really, present in all of its truth and reality, they would have aerial shots. They would be aghast. They would say the city of Washington D.C. is completely shut down. It's clogged. There are hundreds of thousands here. No, you just get maybe a mention on page A23, a short paragraph of the USA Today or something. I don't know.
Well, I agree with you. And here's the other thing, too, is if they do cover it for exactly what it is, the massive, massive turnout, it would deflate their balloon. So they can't. And, it's totally against what they need to drive home with us. And it's very unfortunate, Melissa. I tell you, I go back to that, what you said about, that we have to, I think you possibly even used, you're sort of insinuating about a boycott or something of that nature, just for us to stop consuming from different organizations that support these outlets. Well, look what happened with the NFL. Jerry, if I read that correctly, the latest news, their attendance is way down. They're losing money like crazy. And that all came out of because people said, you know what, enough is enough. This is nonsense. And I agree with you, Melissa. That's why I think Catholic radio, Catholic television, EWTN is so vitally important right now, because we have to be out there in the world in a strong and massive way. Thank you so much, Melissa. You are awesome. Thank you. And thank you for taking us with you on your chores for the day. I love that. That was the best one ever. I'm taking out my garbage, but I'm still listening to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. Thank you, Melissa. God bless you.
Thanks, Melissa. Appreciate that. Yeah, just it's a bit of a different topic, but yeah. See, here's the thing. The NFL, they've gotten away from what they are supposed to be giving us: first downs and touchdowns. Now they're doing kneel downs at the national anthem and stuff, and getting into social justice. Some teams are selling tickets for $3 to an NFL game. Just
are you kidding me? Wow.
Yeah. Anyway, we don't. That's like I said, another topic.
But that's to Melissa's point, though. If we stand together, we could maybe change some.
Fans just start going. Yeah, we can make a difference. And really, to the point of our conversation today, one of the many ways. Say you like EWTN News Nightly, or you like Teresa Tomio's Catholic Connection with all the news you get there, or Raymond Arroyo the world over, and you're not able to catch it live. Don't worry. With technology today, as we've talked about, there is what's called podcasting. It sounds kind of like sci-fi type of thing, podcasting. But what it is, it's just audio on demand. You get to download it to your device and then listen whenever you want. So all you have to do is get a hold of EWTN.com/podcast, and then I guess you just put in whatever the web address is, and it'll point your device over Wi-Fi or whatever right to that podcast. It'll download it right there for you. So go to EWTN.com/podcast for details about that.
I love podcasting. Okay, Alicia, you've been waiting so patiently in San Antonio, Texas, listening on Guadalupe Radio Network. Hi, Alicia. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you're at.
Thank you.
I just wanted to tell you guys before I even start here, I don't know where I would be without Catholic radio. I've moved so much across this country with my husband's job, and I'm telling you, you guys have kept me sane.
Well, praise God.
You guys are wonderful. Your voices are so soothing and so uplifting, both of you, and you're a joy. Before I go on to what I was going to say, and yes, I do study. I go back and forth with my news channels. I've found only one news channel that I consider outside of Catholic news to be very objective. I don't know if I can mention it, but it's not on all the cable channels, so it's a new and upcoming network, and I really enjoyed it. One American News Network. It's the way news used to be. Anyway, in the mornings, because before I get started with my day, and I'm a news junkie too. I'm also involved in politics, so I've had to step away from some of it. And the Lord says to me in the morning, he goes, okay, if you're going to watch the news, what are you thinking about right now? He says, have you stopped to thank me for the millions? He says, yes, you see all these tragedies, and they are tragic, and I'm working on those, and we're working together. But what about the millions of people that I get to and from work every day, traveling across the world, that are safe? They're safe, and they go home to their loving families. Do you think and focus on those things? Do you think about the nurse and the patient that's working together and the patient is getting better? Do you think about the people that actually do go into their nursing homes? Those are all me. The teacher that works overtime, the people on the radios that are really in the news organizations that are trying to do the news right thing. They are me. I'm out there. Focus on that. Focus on that, and don't let yourself get overwhelmed.
Wow, Alicia, you have really just shared a great deal of, I think, very helpful wisdom with us, and you have a good perspective on this. You're doing due diligence, as the saying goes, and there's no doubt that the news that you are consuming is probably very, very authentic and closer to reality than maybe on some other outlets. So we're happy to hear about that. And again, just back to your point about Catholic radio, thank you for your kind words about this show and about EWTN. But really, it's brought to you locally, as you know, by Guadalupe Radio Network and Len Oswald and Toya Hall, and I could list all of them, but there are too many people to list right now, but they were really the key ones to help get it started. And I know you're probably a supporter of theirs, and I encourage everybody, hey, it's the end of the year. Make a year-end gift to your local Catholic radio station, including Guadalupe Radio. They're such big supporters of this program. So, Alicia, you've helped us out. You've helped to make this another fantastic episode of Take Two with Jerry and Debbie, and we appreciate you listening. And be safe and have a beautiful, beautiful rest of Advent and Christmas.
Thank you, Alicia. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. God bless you.
I love the way Alicia weaved it into spirituality. I just love that. Absolutely. We have to bring it back to what is important. We have to keep focused on God. Awesome. Okay. Next up is Stacy driving through Indiana, listening on Catholic Radio Indy. Hi, Stacy. Welcome to Take Two with Jerry and Debbie.
Thank you. Thank you so much for your program. I find this concept of where you get your news really interesting, and I'm delighted to know you have a podcast, because one of the things I have found just in the last year really, really helpful is listening to podcasts on a variety of topics and from a variety of stations, including yours. And the thing about podcasts I find so interesting is often they're extended stories, so they can really give you the fullness of a story. You hear different perspectives. You hear sometimes historical context, which I really appreciate. And then I also really keep relying also on printed news. I love the Catholic Review in Baltimore. I love the Christian Science Monitor. I find that the news very balanced and also hope-filled. And then finally, just one point about millennials that I'm really encouraged by. I have two teenage sons. They're very, very adept with social media, but they really are informing themselves. They go to the web, they research issues, and I have a mother who listens to Fox News kind of 24/7, which I don't disparage her at all. However, it's sometimes as if she never even heard the news story. She just hears opinions about what happened or what someone said. And my kids will very respectfully say, well, actually what happened before that and what happened after that are also important. And so I have hope with the millennials. I teach at a university and see journalism students, and they're so committed to a broad range of perspectives, but also telling the full story. So thank you again.
Wow, Stacy, that is fantastic. You've got some great kids there, it sounds like. And I think one of the things that has happened here is we see the proliferation of, like you said, podcasts, and there are blogs and websites and radio stations and networks, TV, all of this stuff. And because there are so many options for the consumer of news and media, I think it has forced a lot of the networks to really have to kind of narrow down their focus. Who are we? What are we going to be? What is our philosophy going to be? What are we going to represent? And yeah, you're right. I mean, you turn on some of these new, quote unquote, news channels, and all it is people just opining about the news and giving you their opinion and their thoughts and their slant and all of this stuff. So it really doesn't, Debbie, I don't think it amounts to really actual authentic news in many cases anyway.
No. I agree, but I have to tell you, I'm still stuck on the fact that, Stacey, you have incredible children. You need to bottle them up and ship them around the whole entire world, because that's awesome.
Thank
I mean,
you.
yeah, that is incredible. Tell them that they are fabulous. If that's what we have to look forward to with the future of our world and our church, then that makes me very hopeful. To hear what you just said about your children. I love that. Thank you, Stacey, so very much. Blessed Advent to you and an early Merry Christmas.
Thanks, Stacey, for the call. Okay, we're going to go to Michelina. I hope I have the name right. Michelina,
I love
in
that name,
Northern
Michelina.
Virginia, Guadalupe radio listener. Did I get the name right, Michelina?
You sure did. Thank you.
Sure, yeah. Welcome to Take Two.
Thanks. So I also wanted to talk a little bit about millennials. I myself will be 31, and I'm expecting our first kiddo, my husband and I. But I've also been involved with high school and middle school students for the past 6 or 7 years, whether it was teaching in a public school classroom or volunteering at my church. And so a lot of what I see for middle schoolers and high schoolers is that they get their news from their friends on social media, whether it's Instagram or Snapchat. Facebook is kind of out for that age group now. So they are getting the news from these sources that are very web-based and very sometimes personalized to their friends. And so a lot of what I hope to teach, my future child, and hopefully there are many of those, is how to tell the difference. And, in a world where a lot of those younger people in our community see things not in terms of right or wrong, but like what's good for them and what's truth for them, the hope is to give them a good moral compass and the ability to recognize what truth, capital T, is.
Right. Well, Michelina, first of all, congratulations. Do we know what we're having?
No, we're going to be surprised. Life doesn't give you a lot of surprises as an adult, so we figured this would be one to keep until we meet them in person. So
okay, well, please call us and keep us updated if you would do that. But I'm glad that you brought up what you said, because that kind of goes right back to the beginning of the show when I talked about these Facebook posts that people are taking as gospel truth. And it's very frightening because, you just heard Stacey's call where she was talking about her children, that they do their homework, they do their research, they get the full story, and they know how to search different things on the internet to get the full story. But other people will take those little blurbs on Facebook and they'll start Facebook wars over. I've seen Facebook wars over it. It's unbelievable. So I thank you for the work you're doing to help educate our youth.
Thanks. And it's becoming more and more popular now to teach lessons like in the English classroom to middle schoolers and high schoolers and teach them what is fake news and how do you spot that, rather than just liking something or giving it a little heart, to say that you enjoyed the story, but then figuring out later, oh, that wasn't true, So I think that trend would be a great way to kind of make the next generation see what is true and what is not. And so while that might not happen in every school, it can happen in our homes.
Well, Michelina, that is encouraging that you have the freedom to do that and that you have the wherewithal, you have that passion within you to teach them this. It's going to be so important to their futures. Thank you, Michelina and Lynn and Nathan and Dominic and Emily. So sorry you hear that music. We're up against the end of the program. Tomorrow, Debbie, our last live show before Christmas. It's going to be a special one.
We're talking about sending your Christmas greetings. Jerry, you'll have to share a little bit more about that. Christmas, so is it just what...
if there's somebody you're not going to be able to be with at Christmas, what would you like to say to them? That's tomorrow on Take Two with Jerry and Debbie. So until then...
Have a beautiful and blessed day. We'll see you real soon.